Good evening and welcome to the Goffstown Select Board August 10th, 2026 regular meeting. Would you start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the July 27th meeting? If so, I entertain a motion.
Accept the minutes of the July 27th, 2026 meeting, public and non-public with corrections if need be.
Seconded.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Any announcements, I think?
Just one, Jim. So we were fortunate enough, Alice and I attended on behalf of the Select Board the Make-A-Wish event that happened this past week. They did send us an email and they gave us a handwritten note. I figured I'd read the handwritten note because I thought it was very nice. The event was fantastic. Make-A-Wish does an amazing job, but what they said was, the town of Goffstown, thank you on the incredible support you provided throughout Katarina's wish. Thank you for making and permitting and inspecting the process to be smooth, easy, and even fun. Your generous donation of storage bin and pool toys added an extra touch of excitement for Katarina and her family. Your willingness to support this project every step of the way is a wonderful example of what makes our community so special. Thank you for being outstanding community partners and for helping bring hope, joy, and an unforgettable memory for a very deserving Wish family. With gratitude, Tammy, Megan, Mike, Tanya, and the entire Make-A-Wish New Hampshire family. And what I will say is that the entire town staff, police chief, the fire chief, their teams, Derek and his teams made it very easy, I was told. One of the things that we heard was that we were probably one of the easiest communities to work with to make this happen. I thought that was a very nice thing, and Katarina had a fantastic time with her friends that day. It's just a great opportunity, and I really appreciate Patty and Lynn, thank you. Lynn, for putting it all together. They did an amazing job.
Thank you. Nothing else?
Thanks, Derek.
What time do you do public comment?
We don't have the time. We do it as the third item on the
agenda. All right, so I will open it up for public comment. If anyone's here for public comment who's not here for something that's on the agenda. Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public comment and we'll go to tab 4, the Namaske Lake Association.
How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you start with your name and your address, please, for the record?
Michael Allard, 89 Riverview Park, Goffstown. And I'm the president of the Namaske Lake Association. Well, these things are-
We're all doing that tonight, so.
I have, I'm sorry, I have new Invisalign. It's like I'm on like day 5. I'm still getting used to it, so excuse me. Yeah, so we're here because I think most of you are familiar with I sent the presentation out, so you're familiar with the issue. The association was formed in, I think it was 2008, entirely and specifically and only to address the problem of milfoil in Namaske Lake. And we, together with the town of Goffstown, have fought that milfoil ever since, quite successfully up until a few years back, actually quite successfully until this current year. And what's basically happened is the state came out at the end of 2025 and did a survey, which is typical of them, and they make a recommendation on what we need to do for the following season to keep the milfoil under control. They made that recommendation. It was for just some divers to go in for 15 days. We went ahead and got the quotes, we did the work and got permission to do it, raised some funds, got some money committed from the town of Goffstown, got matching funds from the state of New Hampshire. But also, as is typical, every summer before the work is done, the state comes out and does another survey. And the final survey usually is, okay, here's what we see now, let's get the applicator out there and here's what we want you to hit. When they came out this year and did the survey, it was quite extensively a lot worse than what they saw in November. Well beyond the point where any diving was going to do anything. So we had a discussion And they said, 15 days of diving is not even gonna make a dent in this. We're gonna have to do an herbicide treatment next season, so we're not gonna do any work this year. We're gonna wait, save our money, and come back and get it next year. Part of the problem with the herbicide treatment process is we have to get a quote in the fall, and we have to submit it to the state to get all the licenses and everything approved in the January, February timeframe. And this is before we have any funds committed from the town of Goffstown. So we have to kind of stick our necks out just to get the process started. And there is a cost to that. It's usually about $2,000 or $3,000 just to get things going. And we have to make that commitment because there's no other way we can have the treatment done in the summer season without doing that first. So the one fortunate side with losing 1 year is that we're kind of ahead of the game. We're here in August saying, okay, let's get into the budget cycle, let's talk to the town, let's find a way to get, our request is to get into the budget. Obviously, if we can't get it into the budget, then we'll have to go through I think it's a warrant article, if we can get some help to do that and bring it to the town for a vote. I guess that's the way we would go. We did that in 2010, and we had overwhelming support from the town of Goffstown. So, are there any questions? We've always worked together. It's always been an issue. The problem is it's going to be a big one. We know because we've had roughly the same acreage done in 2010. We know what the current costs are for herbicide treatment. I was unable to get a quote. I've been trying to get a quote, but we know what they're charging $800 an acre, and we have about 119 acres to treat. It's going to be somewhere around $110,000 to $120,000 for the treatment.
And who pays the balance? If you're looking for $50,000, who pays the rest?
We hope to get half from the state. We hope to get half from town of Goffstown. Whatever the difference is, we raise with our residents, with the association. We've also gotten support in the past from Enel North America. We get it from, who's the gas company now?
Palmer Gas.
Palmer Gas has been making a donation. We work hard to get matching funds from wherever we can.
And in 2010, did this go on a warrant? Is that what happened?
It did.
And that we'd
It
have
did.
to do again this time?
No, I think you have a few options. You would have to either include this in your proposed budget, or you could do it through a separate warrant article. Conservation has been funding it from their operating budget, which is part of the town's operating budget when it was a smaller amount the last few years. You could ask the Conservation Commission if they would tap into their conservation fund as for a portion or all of it, so you have a couple different options.
We have in the past, there's been at least 3 occasions where we were authorized funds from Goffstown, from the commission, I think it was, a total on the 3 of maybe about $12,000 that we didn't need. It's unfortunate when we don't need it, we say, can we put this aside and save it for a rainy day, but we can't, so we just didn't use the funds.
Anyone else have any questions?
So the association, are you guys putting money aside for these treatments?
Yes.
And how much do you guys have set aside for this now?
At the beginning of the last meeting, it was just under 50,000. But keep in mind, we don't know what we're going to get from the state. Last year it was 50%. The year before that it was only 40%, and over the years it's been as low as 25%.
And you're saying there's no guarantee that you're going to get it one way or another?
From the state?
Yeah.
We've never gotten nothing. We just don't know how much. And so we're in a position where we say, okay, look, if we can get what we think is going to be half from the town of Goffstown, that puts us in a position where we think we can figure out what we need to do to make the treatment one way or the other. But we're not going to know what these details are until we'll be on, beyond the point where we put the ask through.
It's a kind of silly question, I'm sorry, because Namaske Lake Association, is that down past Glen Lake, down below? Like, where are we?
Namaske Lake is the lake below Glen Lake.
Yeah.
The association is everybody that uses the lake, not people that live on it, off of it, or use it.
Right, so does that also go along Manchester's town line as well?
It does cross into the Manchester town line, yes.
Are they providing anything for this?
We're asking. We asked for this past season, and we got a no.
Okay.
We're going to ask for next year. We don't often get money from them. Over the years, I think we've had, if I can get the Manchester one, in that whole time frame, Oh, sorry. It's 20,300. I think on 3 separate occasions they made donations
3 separate occasions. And what's the total amount that Goffstown's contributed?
over that time period.
Yep.
I really should have done
Here,
this.
I don't have the glasses.
Okay, this one.
23.
No, this one.
92,105.
92,105.
Big difference.
To be fair, there's roughly 400 homes that abut or are across from the Namaske Lake in Goffstown, and 50 in Manchester.
Okay. And any public access besides the homeowners?
Yes. 2 spots, one in Goffstown, one in Manchester.
If, should we contact the Conservation Commission, see what their feeling is?
Yep, that's an option for you.
Are they here?
They were not invited. no.
Here, but maybe we should ask them to come in on the, if everybody wants to do that, see what their feelings are, and then, based on what they feel and what their position is and everything, maybe we can figure out how to do it, which way we need to go.
Okay,
okay?
we can do that at a future meeting.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
so just to be clear, so that's going to be to ask the commission whether they have the funds to fund it, or they think we should put it in the budget?
Yeah, see what their position is,
or
and
their
then,
recommend-
and then we'll
recommendations.
make a decision based on what they
Understood.
think, but if they've got that kind of money to possibly do it, I think we ought to talk to them first.
You said prior years you put a warrant article on?
The first time we ever did this, in 2010, yes.
Okay.
And that was by the way, that was the last time we had a significant treatment. It was
2010.
almost the same acreage that we're going to have to do this year, and the total cost then was $45,000. But now it's gone up considerably. Well, that was from 2010, so that was 17 years ago.
Figures that you gave between Manchester and Goffstown, how long of a time period has that been? Was that since 2010 too? I'm just trying to get
16 years, yes.
16 years.
Yes.
And in order to get the state funding, do you have to have a certain amount put aside to be able to get that normally, or you just ask?
We just ask.
Okay.
Yeah. Nicely.
Nicely? With lots of writing? Lots of time?
We get back to them quickly. We do what they ask. Everything that happens as far as the Milfoil is concerned is completely directed by the state of New Hampshire. There's nothing we can do on our own. So even if we wanted to hire divers and go out there and do it on our own, we couldn't. We have to do it with the state's permission, or under their guidance even.
Have we funded this through the Conservation Commission in the past at all?
So it comes out of the Conservation Commission's line in the operating budget. So the first few years, it was a separate warrant article that the voters voted on.
Yeah.
Then it got pulled into the operating budget. They go to Conservation and ask for those funds. We've included that, but it is a line on the operating budget. But again, it's been a long time since we've had a ask this big.
Yeah, that's right, so it's a big ask this
Yes.
time, so I think we...
Yeah, because I think Conservation was funded at maybe like $10,000 this year in the budget, so
I see, okay.
they wouldn't have enough funds in their operating budget. They do have a conservation fund. Anytime we have a land use change tax, when something is taken out of current use, they get 100% of that land use change tax goes into the conservation fund.
Do you know what the balance is, by any chance?
I think it's like up around 290,000.
Oh, well, no problem then.
I guess we won't need to call them in.
Jim, at one time, had the state or somebody dragged with a net? Did we try that at one time? That seems to pop into my,
Not since 2010.
okay. But it is a way to reduce the milfoil, correct?
I can't answer that question. The state would have to answer that question. They've only ever presented us with 2 options. That is DASH, which is diver-assisted suction harvesting. They go down there with a big vacuum and
Yep.
pick stuff up. And herbicide treatment. And depending on how much there is how they make the recommendation.
Okay, any more questions?
What's that?
Okay, so do you need a motion or anything to bring them in next?
It would probably be good to have, I'm not sure, are you the?
Yeah.
Maybe to have Selectman Manzo bring that to them at their next meeting and
Okay.
have them discuss it at their meeting.
Okay, that's good. Right.
I make a motion to have Selectman Manzo take this to the Conservation Committee and discuss their recommendations.
Second?
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Allison. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Want to make donations, it's on our website.
Hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
I think they're all with us.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, this is the biggest crowd we've had in a while. Why don't you stay for a
You
while?
want us to stay?
No, it's good. You have a great night.
Take care.
So, Derek, we can have them in the next meeting after their meeting?
Yeah, after we hear back from Conservation, I think we can invite them back in.
All right.
Because once you have more guidance, you'll be able to figure out where you want to,
Yeah.
I guess,
right.
position it with the operating budget.
Thank you.
Oh, there's the familiar faces. They were hidden.
They're back there.
All back there. They were hidden by all those people.
Public Works Director, it says here.
You're up.
Yeah, that's you.
The guy in the light green shirt.
Seem a bit shocked.
I thought you were just surprised to see us.
We just couldn't see you before with all those people.
I think the public would like to hear about your update on Henry Bridge.
Yes, okay. I sent out an update for some of the interested parties last week. I don't have a ton of new news since that, but just kind of as an overview of where we stand. So as of last week, the corrugated steel decking of the bridge is complete. We right now have probably 2 more days of welding work on the side splash skirting stuff, but that can be done concurrently with the rest of the prep work on the abutments. Concrete contractor On Point is back on scene. They are at the tail end of last week, started the saw cutting demolition of the southern abutment. So they've prepped the northern abutment for the new, what the concrete has to be removed for is expansion joints on the bridge. So to allow the bridge to move slightly and seasonally contract and with loading without becoming separated mechanically from the abutments, there are expansion joints, and the new expansion joints need to be set in concrete on the earth side of the bridge, and they get welded to the structural steel on the deck side for both north and south abutments. So they've cut down, they've pinned and prepped the north side abutment for concrete. Word as of this afternoon is they'll pour that tomorrow morning. The south side abutment has been cut off and is being prepped now for the pinning and then the new steel work that'll have to go in. So the hope is they will be able to get right on the south abutment once the north abutment is poured. We expect to hire early strength concrete, so 3 days after the concrete is poured, it can be trafficked, but traffic, that's a bad term, but it can be construction traffic can go across. Once that's happened, that now opens the door to us to have the first course of paving done.
So 3 days of set time, Adam, is what you said?
3 days of set, yeah.
And that's going to start this week that we do those pours?
So Continental has got us earmarked for the 19th for the first paving date. If for some reason everything's done and they have an opening in the schedule prior to that, we'll get them in as soon as possible. But right now they've got us, Goffstown is planned on the calendar for the 19th. So that gives the concrete contractor a couple days of slack now to make sure that they get poured, to in turn get 3 days of set before next Wednesday. But obviously we'd rather have it done early in the week. So once the first course of paving is laid on the deck, which flattens out the corrugations and gives a nice uniform flat surface, the waterproofing membrane contractor, NICOM, comes and they apply a heat applied rubberized membrane, waterproofing membrane on top of that new skim coat of asphalt. And what that does is protect for future years anyway the steel deck below and then the structural steel. Prevents as much water and salt water intrusion as possible for the life of the deck. So then,
When's that scheduled?
so they are on an on-call to fly in as soon as the deck paving is done. They know that the paving right now is scheduled for the 19th.
Okay.
Historically, the few times we've used them in the past for other bridges, they can come as soon as the very next day, so.
So it has to set at least one day?
Should,
Okay.
should, yep. Once the waterproofing membrane's done, starting that very next day, it can be paved upon. So Continental Paving has assured us that they know this is a time-sensitive thing. They absolutely will not let us get to the first day of school without the wearing course being paved. If they have to come in on a Saturday, so be it. That's their feeling about it. It's a pretty small paving portion, obviously, so tough to get them to commit to anything more than that, like a night pave operation or something.
Yeah.
They're not going to open a multi-million-dollar plant for 100 feet in a road, but usually they do have smaller job sidewalks and parking lots of businesses and churches and stuff that might be lower traffic on a weekend. So they're usually able to flex if they need to. But their goal is to just get it in right in the middle of the work week if all the planets align next week. Any other little minimal site work that has to happen can happen after traffic's,
So like lining and stuff like that?
Exactly. So we'll do, typically what we'll do with new pavement is put temporary markers if it's a road that has center line. So we have rubberized markers that can go down the middle. It's a pretty narrow bridge, so we definitely want to have those up. Usually you try to wait a few weeks for the new asphalt to set and some of the oils to subside because it tends to bleed through the paint, which we saw in Pinardville when we had a very end of season finish last year, so we had to paint it late. But regardless, we'll have center line done. We've demobed most of our equipment and supplies there, all the fall protection stuff that's no longer needed with the deck now being back in place. So largely Public Works is pulled away. As soon as the concrete forms are stripped, we'll have some backfill operations on the approach ends, but it's a couple hours worth of work just
So basically, if we don't get the concrete pours by this Friday, we'll be behind schedule.
That's when we start talking about, okay, now we need a concrete contractor or another to swoop in and.
But you don't think that's going to be a problem?
They've insured us a local concrete on point, so they're kind of got skin in the game as a local entity, so they're assuring us that they'll be ready to rock and we'll get the bridge
So
not
you
hold
didn't
anything up.
answer the one question everybody wants to know. You have a target date, and I ask you that knowing that anything could happen.
Right. So the official target date is prior to the 31st to make sure that buses can roll on the first day of school.
That's August 31st.
That's right. We know that the school probably wants a couple days of dry run type stuff with buses, so if we can fast track paving after the membrane, that's the goal. Largely weather dependent on those last three steps of paving, membrane, paving. Long-term forecast doesn't look too bad, but of course that can change in a
So
week.
what I heard, your best case is you would have it finished by the 21st, based upon the timing that you just outlaid.
Potentially, yes.
And then worst case, because you get pushed out, basically you have until the 28th.
Right, if we're going to try to do a last minute type thing.
Technically, the 30th,
Yes.
and then they just won't be able to practice
Right.
the buses.
Yeah.
But really, as long as the 31st, that's what we need.
Well, that gives people an idea, people listening an idea, so.
Right.
That's good.
At this stage in the game, I'll be updating the same stakeholders weekly now as we get here in the last couple weeks, just and sooner if we have a big milestone. I'll send out as soon as we get concrete poured. I'll send out one as soon as we get skim paving done, membrane contractor that. So we'll, I don't want the school to get into a situation where they're 10 days out and they feel like they have to put out a big
Exactly.
hair fire type notice that hey, we might not be able to meet our pickup schedule as previously discussed kind of thing. So
I think we want to know, obviously, if we can't get the concrete poured by the end of this week.
Yes.
Because that's going to put us behind.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Otherwise, going well.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
We got another one for
Yeah,
Al.
we're doing the water quality.
Oh yes.
Yeah, don't run off, Adam.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, this one's not quite as exciting. In a nutshell, Derek put together a good synopsis for you folks, but in a nutshell, this is a requirement of the MS4, which is the Municipal Separated Storm Sewer System program, which we are a community, MS4 community, because we have an urbanized area with stormwater collection system that does outfall to natural water bodies, rivers and lakes. So, as an MS4 community, this is a federal permit that's managed as part of the Clean Water Act by New Hampshire DES locally. And one of the requirements, so this general permit that we operate under as an MS4 community, it's right now it's a 2017 permit that we're on year 8 or 9, I guess now. That each year there are progressively more standards that have to be met. So this is the sort of thing that largely is taken care of by our engineering staff and our engineering interns. A lot of water sampling throughout the year of all of our outfalls, so any of our stormwater system that dumps into a river, a stream, or a lake, we have to sample at those outfalls, hopefully under wet weather conditions and dry weather. They both tell us different things, and have those water samples analyzed for various contaminants of concern, bacteria, nitrogen, phosphorus, chlorides, that kind of thing, lead, So as part of the MS4 program, one of the requirements was to have an ordinance in place, which will give the town some teeth in case we didn't already have any kind of an ordinance to do so for people that might be polluting the waters of the town. This can be anything from a homeowner with a sump pump that's got an illicit connection, maybe to their laundry or to worse, their sewer. Maybe they might have an old, Pittsburgh toilet or bathroom or whatever where it pumps out to the stormwater system. To new construction where maybe site runoff is a concern, where they're not taking proper erosion control prevention measures, or stockpiling winter salt, uncovered salt piles, or bulk oil, that kind of thing. So soup to nuts, from residents to businesses and to active construction projects. They're looking for the town and us as the permittee to handle all of this and make sure that our water quality is high. The requirement was to get a stormwater ordinance in place. We did that back in 2021. We had stormwater standards that were part of the development regulations for years, and this most recent revision to the development regs that's about to hit the street actually removed those because the MS4 requirements were a little bit more stringent than what the town normally had on the books. So we had asked if that could be separated off, and then the select board can manage those rather than asking the planning board to redo their development regs every time there might be a change at the federal MS4 level. This is kind of that bifurcation effort. So now it's a standalone set of regulations that we'll have to follow, and hopefully any future development or residents. So a good chunk of it is investigations. If we do have a hit from one of our sampling, or if you see an oily sheen on the water, how do we prosecute that? How do we work upstream, find out where it's coming from, and then what to do when we do find the source, that kind of thing.
So Adam and Derek, since I was on the planning board and we did the planning board development regulations and accepted them, our understanding was that this was already accepted prior, which is why the select board signed it previously in 2021. Was that not the case?
So what the select board did was there's an ordinance and then there's the regulation. So the ordinance is the legal mechanism which says, hey, as a select board, we care about water quality. Don't worry about the details; those are held elsewhere. But this gives us by RSA, the legal mechanism to say if somebody's polluting, we can now point to this ordinance and say you violated an ordinance, a legal ordinance. Here's your fine for every day that you pollute, or every case. So some of it was in place, and then the actual full build out of all the regulations has been up until now part of the
The development regulations have been worked on for the last couple of years. But
Yes.
I'm talking about specifically this one.
So the ordinance was in place, signed by the select board.
This was already in place.
The ordinance, and when the select board adopted that and held public hearings, it was explained that DPW would come back with the water quality standards, and that's a step that we're doing right now.
Yep.
Okay, so that hadn't happened until now.
Correct.
Because the planning board was under the assumption all this was done.
Okay. Yep. So it was just the ordinance, and then it points back to something, and because the development regs don't have it, here we
So,
are.
so what can we do if we adopt this and separate from the regs? What can we do now that we couldn't do before?
Not much. It allows the select board, if there's a change, if we have an enforcement issue, it doesn't put the onus back on the planning board maybe for their annual change, the select board, but you have the ordinance in place which points to the A standard. If you adopt the standards, that'll give you something that, hey, we can bring a revision if we have like a, let's say we have a contamination case, we follow it through and then we get hung up somewhere with either the process or the requirements, and we have a donut hole, we can come back to the select board now instead of the planning board and say, hey, select board, would you like to, adjust our standards that we have on the books? And that's a quicker, and more to the point, tip of the spear type thing where you folks are the ones that are charged with it, not the planning board. So it's a better place for it to live, that's for sure.
Anybody else have any questions?
Was this reviewed prior, Derek, in your mind, from the previous select board? Did they review all this, or is
They did not.
No.
But we're not here to review, to amend the actual ordinance. We're here to just make this change from one entity to the other, as I understand it.
Well, was anything added between now and the time that you guys accepted it in 2010?
We didn't have them, so when the board considered the ordinance in 2021, they didn't have a water quality standard to
So the way
to look at.
the way the MS4 requirements were, I don't remember what year it was now.
They did it in like steps.
They said, okay, first things first, you have to have an ordinance which gives the select board the authority to crack down on somebody with a fine structure, and that's the ordinance. The ordinance by design is very generic and just says, hey, we as a town are taking this authority and we're putting it in paper now. If somebody violates, Adam or Derek or a zoning officer or even police officer can go to somebody's residence or place of business and say, hey, you're violating this ordinance now. We're going to crack down on you. Without that in place, there are no teeth other than through the planning board regulations, which were a little bit more limited with what they could be applied to. So bigger development projects, not a single homeowner kind of thing. The standards now, later, so this is either a year or two after the requirement to have an ordinance in place, the standards are based almost completely on the model standards developed by the New Hampshire Stormwater Coalition in partnership with DES as, hey, here's a set of model standards which, if you have put this into place, you're going to meet every requirement of the MS4 through the end of the permit window.
Okay, everybody, okay, I want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed water quality standards as presented with an effective date of August 10th, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Allison. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. One other thing, if I could take 30 seconds. The other piece of info from DPW from last week is we had our fuel tank inspections Friday. The tanks did pass, so orders been placed to get those filled so the departments can get back on our fuel island instead of the WEX cards. So that's good. We're good for another 5 years with those tanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now you gotta move.
Yeah. Slide, Uncle. See.
Chief Sereno.
Just watch that big thing down
You're fine,
there.
we're just here. I'm just gonna go right like this. You don't have to go.
Good evening, everyone. I might call my colleagues behind me because I think they have some input into this memo I sent you as well at some point, but I just wanted to kind of bring up a few things that we're experiencing in town. In your packets, you should have a memo outlining from Lieutenant Bernard, who his team and he went down to the area behind Surratt Field, which I can show on the projector here at some point and show you guys exactly where we're at. We're having a pretty significant problem in our community with unhoused individuals who are living on the rail trail area of town down by the river in several different locations. A few years ago, I was in front of this board talking about making sure that we're all on the same board that the town governing body has not given anybody permission to camp, sleep, tent, live on town property without permission. At that time, that was the affirmative, that they did not give that authority. Over the couple of years, we've seen more and more of unhoused personnel living in our community, some of which choose to, some of which are down in their luck. This particular facility, I'll call it, had some individuals in there, some of which were arrested for felony warrants, others were let go, but we've basically told them that they have to vacate the area. The problem is, over the past couple of months and last year, it's becoming more of how do we start to clean this stuff up. Rick and his crew cleaned up one area that I can show you with a lot of different trash, used items, tents, tarps. I think David Pierce had cleaned a encampment up on the rail trail by himself. There's unfortunately not a lot of David Pierces left in this world that will volunteer his time. This particular encampment, if you look in the packet, and I can share the packet itself, the memo here on the click share that Lieutenant Pinard did, but you can see some of the encampments getting bigger in the woods. This is a current drone picture from our team. Last month, there's some propane tanks, which we are suspecting are the ones that were stolen from Auburn's, but that's just an alleged thinking of that theory. This was, you can see last year, this was the starting of it, and the current year. I'll bring you guys to our mapping system. Essentially what you're looking at here, the red dot is Pizza Market on Mass Road. This is Kelly Street, or towards the Byron Bridge. If you go into Surratt Field, which is where they play football, it's our own landfill, our old landfill. Down here in the culvert, Adam has informed me, as well as the other DPW members, there is a major culvert that releases water and goes into this culvert out to the river, hopefully not flooding Pinardville. And what we're seeing here in this area right here, this is a flyover from this year in April. If we turn it a little bit, you'll start to see the camp itself in the embankment. So here's your Louis Street ball field, the end of Louis Street and Sharon Street. This is Surratt Field. If we zoom out a little bit, again, Pizza Market's here. This is your rail trail and your Sandy Beach area, or it used to be known as Sandy Beach, and Moose Club Park Road is down here. So this encampment is situated deep into the woods, depending on the time, but you'll see the main culvert that comes out, flushes down into this ravine, and then continues itself down into another catch basin here that then goes into the river. What we're experiencing is significant trash buildup. This is just from April. In that memo you saw there were some other pictures, and we have since for the most part gotten people out of that area, some of which came out in handcuffs, others have kind of moved along. Today it sounds like what we saw was Eversource was down cutting some of these trees that they're required to for their power lines, and while they were down there, their truck was parked in this area, and the tree cutting crew were down there cutting trees, and while they were down there, their leaf blower got stolen off the back of their truck. Sounds like a person on a bicycle that was in that area with a wagon took their leaf blower. So that was kind of a situation that we were just dealing with this morning. I'll show you some other photos we have. This culvert here is, to the top right is Louis Street ball field. So as you're looking at it, you're looking up from the river towards the culvert. This is the catch basin below us that was clogged, and it was flooding that area, so it could not release the water down into the river. This is some stuff that was in that catch basin. that DPW found. This was a whole other scene. This is Moose Club Park. This is another one that Rick was working on. I can talk about that in a minute. This was part of that catch basin that was clogged. So really, what I'm here to talk to you guys about is it's becoming bigger than a police issue, bigger than a DPW, a Parks and Rec. This is a community problem. And at some point, this encampment is too dangerous for our workers to go in there with shorts and a t-shirt, or, you know, we're gonna need more equipment to go in there and take this stuff out of here. We have some solutions we've been talking about, but I wanted to bring it to your attention so you understand what's going on in our community. And
Did you say there's nobody living there now?
well, they're not supposed to be.
There's somebody there right now.
So Rick
I
was,
was in there today.
And-
There's people.
How many people?
Couldn't tell you.
we were down
They
there,
weren't there now.
we were down there a couple weeks ago, and there were several people in there. If they're still in there, they're not supposed to be. And part of that issue is some people leave and then others come in. It's not, it might not be the same people. And I'll bring you back a side note real quick. That other picture that I showed you that Rick cleaned up, that's down here and then between Louis Street and Moose Club. It's down in this little area here where people are off the rail trail down in this area. And if you go back a year, you can see some of the remnants here of it starting to take place, of a little camp there.
Drug or alcohol usage, you find down there, Chief, or not?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say that based on some of the stuff we're finding on the ground, used needle caps, stuff like that, absolutely.
Okay. And what's the proposed solution?
Well, I want to make sure we still have the board's thought on if we're allowing unhoused people to live on town property or not. That's in the RSA. The other thing we've been thinking about working with Rick is creating some more signage and potentially another ordinance that basically, the state law talks specifically about just camping on public property, but we'd like to try to kind of craft an ordinance that talks more like not just camping, but you can't cook, you can't, there's some language issues here where people are telling us that, well, we're not living here, we're not camping here, we're just here for the day camping. And this is not just here, it's all the way through the rail trail. We're seeing it down by the Parks and Recs where people are grilling and hanging out all day, and then when they leave for the day after they visit our beautiful community, they leave all their trash, all their grills, all their stuff is there. So we're trying to work through this to give you guys an update and kind of figure out if we can, I hate to sound like we're gonna make stricter laws, because I am a person who believes in everybody has the right to go and have their freedoms, but it's becoming a bigger problem. Specifically down here, we have to target this as a PD and constantly go in there, but I think the problem is we, DPW and Parks and Recs, cannot clean this. This is a substantial amount of hazardous stuff in there, and we might have to have the community or some kind of company come in here, I shouldn't say community, but some kind of professional company come in here and actually clean it up.
That's in that ravine that goes down pretty significant, right?
Yes.
It's a great spot for them.
Oh yeah, it's a great hideaway. Is there any way that we can cordon off or fence any of that area?
They're gonna get over the fence.
Yeah,
They're probably gonna get over the
They'll cut the
fence.
fence.
They're gonna,
Places they've cut fences
we have a gate out back.
right along the rails trail.
We have a gate that comes down from the Surratt field. And it crosses right at the trail, and it has like a bike entrance and all that. That gate is, I mean, I replaced.
We're talking here, Rick?
No,
No,
go down in the back, down by the river. Bang, right there. Right where the, down low where
Yeah.
that
Oh, right here.
shadow is down
Yeah.
in there, right there. That gate, that thing's cut every other day.
And this is the trail that goes up to Louis Street ball field right here. That goes up to the parking lot.
So I know that there's a lot of vagrants as you're getting into Manchester that are lining along that side, because I ran that path not too long ago. And basically, so are we getting a lot of trickle in coming out of that side from Manchester?
There is no doubt in my mind that a lot of this traffic, this foot traffic, is coming across the bridge on the rail trail.
So
And
basically,
they're, you know, I'm not gonna say, I don't know how to say this without getting my, the city is pushing on us, and the city has their own, you know, problems. So what they're doing is they're creating ordinances, and they're doing different things to kind of help unhoused people either get housing or kind of pushing them outside of their boundaries, which are now coming to our community, Hooksett, and Bedford. The rail trail itself, you know, is an easy kind of right across the bridge, and there's plenty of places, as you can see, where people can just kind of find their way off the rail trail and kind of be on their, you know, on their own. Now, there are people that live in the woods, and we've experienced it here in our community, and we've talked to these people, and they're pretty harmless. They don't like to be in the city. But what we're seeing is this particular encampment is housing more and more people, and we're also seeing the correlation of this, and I'm gonna say it, but we are seeing a lot of petty thefts, bicycles, propane tanks, and then lo and behold, we're down there, and there are bicycles, and there are
Generators. No one's got a generator. One of those 8,000 generators, you know, for your house.
My understanding is this particular encampment had rooms, it had the generator, it had, I didn't see it for myself, but it sounds like it had Starlink with the Wi-Fi down there, had propane heaters.
They got a lot of accessories.
all the comforts of home.
Yeah.
If we figure out a way to clean that up, can you police it so that they don't come back?
So my hope is exactly that. If we can at least get the structure and all that out of there, and maybe work with Eversource and try to see if we can cut some more line of sight in there, because once it grows in, and I think if I go back a few years, you can
Yeah,
see.
put your cursor up on that tree line there.
Which one?
Right there where it just was.
Here?
Yep. So right where that whole thing, and then go up higher above the blue. It would be beautiful to clear cut that entire area.
Because then there would be no ability to hide in there.
You got nowhere to hide. The issue, I think, is because of the slope of the
It's steep.
cap and all that stuff. I don't think you can do it, because then you might have erosion issues.
Yep.
But in all honesty, if you could clear cut that entire thing, then that doesn't make it a desirable place to be.
So can we clear cut, not clear?
I don't think you
cut,
can clear cut.
but cut just some of the,
Maybe we can. I don't have any money to do that, though.
Would that be opening it up to the neighborhood? Isn't there like a
Oh,
neighborhood
God.
right past that?
Oh, no.
Okay.
So Louis Street kind of buffers, and then this power line
Yeah,
section
so there are
buffers a
some-
little bit.
Some more there.
The thing about the rail
Yeah.
trail along that area is it's so hidden, people can get up off of it right
All
away.
this right in
Yeah,
here,
you
you
just
clear
look at
cut that, these people wouldn't even know what's
Yeah.
going on.
But to your point, Josh, like when you're running down here,
Yeah.
right, this goes up a hill, and obviously, like Rick said, there's a fence here, so most people won't go past there. And then if you go down in here, sometimes it's so hidden down here that
Exactly.
they don't, you know, we don't see them. Our bike patrols will catch them because there's trails they can get through there. And I believe, Rick, you were saying that other area was somewhere right in here.
Yeah, sit right in the U there, right in there.
Yeah.
That was, I had to be a Sherpa to get that stuff out of there.
So what I'm hearing, Chief, is you need help getting that cleaned up. You want to make sure that we as a select board back the fact that people shouldn't be living there.
Correct.
And you think there should be some ordinances that basically will give you more teeth to be able to eliminate any sort of...
Yes, I'm going to work with my colleagues here about how we can draft this and see if you guys want to entertain it and then potentially put it to public vote. But I think the bigger urgent need here is, do we call in a Clean Harbors or some professional company that can get down there and really get rid of some of this? You know, you have propane tanks, we're not sure if they're full or not. There's other I can only imagine there's waste in there from humans.
I'll be honest and straightforward. There's needles, there's stuff like that. I would not, in my experience of doing this once, and our volunteer of the millennium, David Pierce, who's done many of these, we should not be doing that. You're putting us at risk. You need a professional.
And I guess the question is, or the thought is, to the board is, if that is a solution, or we can contract with, it's gonna cost money that I don't think anybody in any department has, or has planned for this. I don't know what the price is on that. We have not gone down that road. This is merely last month, kind of like, I feel like we were down there, there's a lot of stuff going on down there, and I said to our team, like, we need to get some drone pictures, we need to get this done, I gotta bring this to the board, because I think you guys really deserve to know what's going on, for our community's sake.
If we do this, don't they just move to another spot?
For sure. And the hope is we can continue to kind of target and you know, it's hard, Jim, because to have some empathy and understand that there are people that really just they're down their luck, and we talk to them, right? We try to figure out what's going on. Like I said, the one individual, we've known him for many years, right? He since moved, but he got robbed in Manchester several times, so he just stayed off the rail trail, hid away. We check on him in the winter. He just did his own thing. Wasn't really a big problem. Didn't have a lot of hazardous material stuff. But as we're seeing the city push on us, this is what we're getting. So yeah, I think what you're not seeing is this is the bigger one. We've had several that Rick and David, we've all gone over there. It's been a tent or a little bit of a tarp that we've told them, you gotta move it. Those people have picked their stuff up and moved it. My fear here is like, this is almost like, you know, people are just finding out about it and showing up. So we might move 5 people out of here. They're not allowed back. We know who they are. Stay up. And then next thing you know, another round of people just start coming in, and they're finding this particular spot through word of mouth. And again, if there's people that we can help, or we have resources to help with, that we can say, hey, there's other programs out there, we definitely do. Some people that we're running into, unfortunately, it's not the situation for them, right? It's just they're unhoused, they have a lot of different things going on, and they're living down here.
Chief, are we arresting any of these individuals for the drug usage? I'm just curious.
Some people were arrested on felony warrants the other day, yeah.
Okay. And what ordinances or what things is Manchester doing that's causing them to actually push further into our area?
I think what's happening is they have created some different ordinances that are basically saying exactly that. You can't live on public property, you can't live on town property, city, or, you know, parks. I know years ago they had a team of MPD members that were assigned to just go out and basically help unhoused people move from one spot to another, depending on what was going on in the city. I know the city also dealt with some groups that would come in and kind of advocate for the unhoused people. So I think what's happening is the city's kind of pushing them and saying, you can't be here, you can't be here, you can't be here. So these people are starting to go like, where can we go? If we can't be under the bridge, if we can't be in this park, we can't be in that park, eventually people start to be like, well, I'm going to move a little bit further out of the inner city limits. And again, the city has resources for them, so they're maneuvering through the rail trail back to the city when they need to.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, police chief and the other.
Does anyone have any more questions or anything of the chief?
Do we have any signage down there?
That's something that we're going to work with.
That's what we're asking.
If we part of the thought is if we can put together an ordinance and it seems to work, we're going to work with Rick's crew and Adam's crew. We'll see if we can get some signage up that literally just say, no, there's no sleeping, camping, whatever it is in this area or public property. I think that's kind of the idea here is people are like, hey, we're a free country, we can just live, but which sometimes I feel like we should, but then when it becomes a problem, especially for this culvert, where if it blocks up, we're going to have a bigger problem in Pinardville.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that to have the police chief and the other departments get a quote for cleaning that up.
Okay.
A second that.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Allison. Any more questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Now, Josh, in your motion, you didn't mention anything about signs. Are we gonna work on the signs, or are we gonna?
I think that's a second motion, and I think we need to understand, do we need to give you time
Yep.
for providing that to us and approving that? Or do you want us to just dictate, go get signs and put them up?
Well, I think what we're gonna do is, we're gonna work together to put together potentially maybe a little bit more of a ordinance that has a little bit more teeth or more direction than the state law. Probably basing it off our neighbors that are doing it, and then bring it to you guys to see if you wanna, adopt it, which would have to go through its motions of, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 2 public hearings
Yes.
that are all separated up by a couple weeks, which we potentially could be into a month or 2 or 3.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to have the chief go and look at ordinances and provide recommendations back to the select board for approval later.
Second.
Just make a comment, I think you ought to run that by legal before we,
Yep.
right, okay. So, I'm sorry, motion by Josh, second by Allison. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Is there anything else you need, chief?
That's it for right now. I just wanted to really get this in front of you all so you guys can have a better understanding of what's going on in our community. In particular, this area, it's becoming a desperate situation. So that's it for now, I think.
Can I ask one more? With regard to, do you see other people that are not in this scenario that want to spend the day down by the river, maybe cooking, maybe not cooking? Do you run into that a lot? I guess I was just hoping that if that was a thing that the community liked to do, that maybe the ordinance wouldn't stop those types of things. Unless
Yeah.
you think it's just opening a can that you really can't
Well,
even anymore.
Interestingly, it's, as a member of our community who frequents the rail trail and,
Right.
runs and walks, and
Me too.
I see it too, right? I see people that are parking in one section, walking down the rail trail with their cart full of stuff, and they're gonna make a day to enjoy, maybe not the beach side of the river, but the other side by Parks and Rec, right? And, which is fine, people go about their business, but I think what ends up happening is, sometimes what we're seeing is after they're done, they're not being good stewards of their trash and their grills and everything else. So what ends up happening is, it's like a one-time, we're gonna be here for the day, but we don't feel like bringing it all out. And I'm sure Rick has picked up grills and trash, and I know David Pierce has. And I think, by that time, we can't go back and say, hey, you're gonna be charged with littering because those, we don't know who they are. And if we don't have the ordinance, essentially we can't go down and say, hey, by the way, just so you know, you can't be here, and if you do and you leave your stuff, we're gonna identify who you are. But, so yeah, we see people that are doing it. I don't know who they are or where they're from, but it gets busy this past weekend when it's 90 degrees. There's people everywhere.
Allison, are you thinking that maybe like in some area it would be okay? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I am one of those people on the other side, this side of the lake, not the beach side, that goes to that steep hill. My kids and I trek down there, and honestly, they typically pick up garbage and bring it back out with us. We don't leave anything, but I can see how that could be a problem. But I love seeing people there. Boats pull up, and there's people in the sand, and there's people on the other side that are the rail trail side, and it's a nice shallow area. And I don't want us to forget that we are still a small town, and this is what people love about it. So I'm just asking if there's a way, or just to be cognizant of that when we're trying to come up with a new ordinance, that there are good people that just want to enjoy the rail trail and the lakes too.
That area.
But I
So this is Angel
yeah.
Point, right? So
Yep.
this situation we dealt with a few years ago, because what was happening was people were bringing their cars in here, they were coming through the Eversource
yeah.
section,
Yep.
and they were partying, leaving trash. So what we did was we worked with Eversource because they owned this portion of so they posted it, no trespassing, but the town owns this section right here. So to your point, I agree, like, come have fun, but like, unfortunately, people who can't be good stewards of their own trash and their own, stuff, they ruin it for everybody else. But to your point, yes, this whole area, but what we're seeing is they park here across the ball fields, and they kind of truck into that area, and specifically that where you're talking about
Yeah.
is exactly where all the trash ends up, on this side of the town.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, I think
Although I don't know if someone's cleaned it up, because I was there not that long ago, and it was okay. doesn't mean someone hadn't cleaned it up. but,
Yeah. I
Again, it was just a thought.
I follow what you're saying because I think the same way. Like I see people all the time, when I'm out and about, and you kind of just like mind your business as long as people are picking up after themselves, enjoy the day and enjoy our community. But unfortunately, we come back later and there's drug paraphernalia, there's alcohol stuff, which and people just leave it there.
Right.
I think that piece we want to keep out, but to your thought process, Allison, I was curious, Rick, have we ever thought about clearing an area where it could be a few campgrounds, we charge money for it, that sort of thing? I'm just curious.
So that parcel's actually owned by the state of New Hampshire, not the town.
Which one? This?
Angel Point is actually state of New
Oh,
Hampshire.
it's not ours. I thought we had just a little section of it.
So you just talked about clear cutting.
Thank you.
There is an opportunity for campgrounds.
Not in those areas.
No.
Is that what you has?
Not in those areas.
No. I know, not down the ravine, but I mean, if there are other areas, do we get people that actually are legitimately just camping for a day, kind of hanging out with their kid?
I don't see it anywhere. The only issue I think we're seeing is over where we just showed you, around that field area, looking around the rail trail. That is very evident. Anywhere else, the waterfront, you got people drinking there. There's signs everywhere not to do all this stuff. This is life. This is reality.
Yeah.
So you got the same drinking going on over there. You got the Angel Point thing. I'm sure you got it going on. It's everywhere. You have the good folks that will take their trash in and out, and I have to commend the group of people that have been using Glen Lake this year because there's very little trash. We've come a long way. That used to be really bad.
Yeah.
Yes, you have a diaper here and there. Yes, you have a beer can. Yes, you have a pack of cigarettes. Yes, but it's nothing like it used to be. Canned worms. All the fishermen, I don't understand that one. They go fishing and they leave their plastic can. I'm like, dude, bring your can.
Exactly.
I don't get that. But you got two different beasts here. You really do. You have a situation where you got unhomed people. Did I say that right?
Unhoused.
Unhoused people. That's another one. You say, how's this happening? Well, if every community starts putting ordinances in place, what's it keep doing? Push. Kind of like the CIP, kick it down the road. Same thing. You're just kicking it down the road. That's reality. But I think we need to do due diligence and get a hold of it. You won't ever correct it. That's the other reality. You're not going to correct it. It's going to be an ongoing battle.
I know you don't like this, but if we put barrels at certain places, would that help?
God, no.
Don't you? And why?
You put a barrel, that's a nice thing for the nice person. So thank you for doing that. The number of people that just don't care, they're still picking up their trash. And if you put a barrel in a public place, then you get a muffler, then you get a tire, then you get some other thing. You get somebody's household trash. They're driving by and they throw it in a trash can. There's more reality.
I think that's one point of view, Rick. I like.
The carry in, carry out state thing is the way to go.
I think a lot of good people do carry in and carry out.
Yes.
But having lived in a lot of different cities, places, I will say that, like, when I lived in London, having trash cans around was great. People clean the streets all the time, and people put stuff in there. I find that a lot of places here in the States, we don't have trash cans, and I see a lot more trash. People aren't putting them in the trash can. So I think it's a happy balance. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, to Jim's question. I think it's something that we should consider as well in certain spots. I'm not talking about in the back of the woods, but like definitely like in certain spots it might be okay to have it.
Just saying, 16 years. I've seen that waterfront for 16 years.
I know.
In the last 5 years, we have not had any trash cans. We took them away. And I don't think it's that bad.
So we had them before is what you're saying?
We
and it
had
was worse.
everything. We had them up along
Piled
the
up,
roadside.
piled up.
We had them on the roadside. We had cans every 20 feet.
Yeah.
It was still trash.
Okay.
So, and I just think we have one can over there, and we leave that right by the toilet at the waterfront.
Perfect.
Because they were throwing all the diapers in the
Yeah,
trash.
off to the side.
No, not off to the side, in the toilet.
Oh, jeez.
Good times. Well, I saw him off to the side too when I was over
Yeah.
there.
But it's, I think, all in, it's managing pretty good. It really is for the waterfront area. The places that you don't really get to, that nobody really supervises, that's what happens.
So will we have to pick up patrols and things like that as well?
Yeah, for us, it's becoming, how do we, when we identify it, then we go down there. But again, when you have certain staffing levels at certain, given days, we're not always walking down in that ravine, and we don't ever send one officer down in that ravine. That's a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
So we have to now put together the team that goes down there, and that potentially puts 3 or 4 officers who are not responding to the other side of town. So yeah, it just depends on how it works, but our bike patrols are out there, they can see it, but we typically, if somebody on the rail trail calls or emails, hey, I saw this, we typically go down there to go look at it.
Any more automated drone patrols or anything like that we should consider? No, I'm serious.
Interestingly enough, Axon is trying to get us to invest in their drone as a first responder, which is an autonomous drone that flies from a location that the police department can send out and assess scenes, but it's way out of our price range, and we don't think we need it right now. We have our own drone that we can put up when we need to. That situation, we can send it up to kind of see it before we get down there. We don't need at this point, we don't need the autonomous stuff.
Okay, I think we made all our motions for everything, so.
Thank you all
Thank you,
very much.
Chief.
I appreciate you guys taking your time. Thank you.
I mean, if you want me to put cans, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, honestly.
Rick, I trust you.
I'm just saying, I think it's useless, that's all.
No, well, the feedback about that you tried it before, I think, is beneficial. And if it's gotten better since then, and we still have one there, great.
It's managing. It's managing.
If you hit it twice, there you go.
All right, tab 7, Town Administrator's Report.
Yes, your first page, you have your consent agenda. You have 2 cemetery right to inters, one at Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 2, Lot 60C, one at West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, Columbarium A, Row A, Niche 3. You have event permits. You have the Goffstown Main Street Program's Giant Pumpkin Way Up and Regatta. And then you have 2 proclamations for the board's signature.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Allison, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Your next page, you have a revised revenue and collection turnover policy. This was at your last meeting, and what the finance director added was a definition for secured locations, added a requirement that at no time shall any department hold more than $1,000 in any cash at one location, clarified turn-in procedure when the finance office is closed, because we do have some offices that are open on the weekend or may close later, and then updated and just reorganized the RSAs before they weren't in numerical order. But those are the changes made since this was last presented.
Motion to approve the proposed change to the town's revenue collection and turnover policy as presented.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Richard. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
At tab 7C, you have a proposed a draft RFP for municipal building and snow removal, and then with some good feedback from DPW today. You do have a couple of changes that were redlined on your on the table for you, specifically requiring that trucks and equipment shall have amber warning lights. To clarify who at DPW would be overseeing this. And then just a few typo, nothing really substantial thereafter.
I have a question about this. So, who plows the schools?
The town does.
But they're not included in... So, like, our DPW plows the schools?
DPW plows the schools, and then they have custodial staff that will clear the walkways and the access.
But not to get into an us versus them, but, so DPW plows the schools, but now the town, who's on a default budget, has to find a way to,
So I think
Hire a company?
I think what was driving this was from our Joint Loss Safety Committee,
Okay.
where there are office staff
Right.
clearing entrances and sidewalks to municipal buildings. We have had cases of injuries. So the ask was to come up with an RFP to have a vendor come in and do that.
Yep.
I did include the clearing of the lots. Specifically, I was worried that if we simply shovel the entrances, shovel the sidewalks, we wouldn't have enough interest from vendors. It may be too small a job.
So who's plowing the driveways now, or the
The lots?
The lots.
DPW.
DPW's plowing the lots? So, question that I had out of this is, do we think that this is gonna cost as much as it would hiring a person?
No. I think when Bedford went out to bid for similar number of buildings last year, I think they got one quote in and it was $40,000 short of the winter. So that would not be the cost of one
so
employee.
DPW doesn't shovel other than a DPW?
So right now, Parks and Rec, along with our part-time facility maintenance in Town Hall, on Monday through Friday, they will go and they'll do Town Hall, they'll do the library, they do Grassmere Town Hall, and they'll do the Parks and Rec building. They work together to do that. On some of our bigger snowstorms, they've come in on a Sunday or maybe a holiday the day before. We open up and they do a great job clearing us out. Right now, police and fire kind of do their own thing.
And that's where there was a serious injury.
Yeah, I get all that. I just was wondering, it just seemed odd that I don't see the school included in this, and if the town is the one who, the town portion is clearing the school, if they didn't have to clear the school,
Yeah.
could they be doing all the other buildings, and we're on a default budget and we're having to pay for this?
You're thinking the other way, since we do the lots, could they help clear the walkways?
They would have to get out of their trucks, then they would get backed up in time and may or may not open up for the beginning of school unless school is
Right,
canceled altogether.
who does the shoveling at the schools?
The custodial staff?
Custodial staff?
Yeah,
Okay.
And
So it was
they're-
kind of
and
a
they're
similar
maintenance.
thing? Okay.
But we only have really one maintenance person here at the
Right.
town, and then Rick's team has been doing it, right?
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And the chief's team, and I think the other chief has also been
Yeah.
shoveling theirs.
I remember that. Okay. Okay.
Motion?
Motion to approve the proposed RFP for snow plowing and winter maintenance.
second,
Okay, motion by Richard, second by Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And at tab 7D, you have a draft CIP matrix. CIP, the Capital Improvement Program Committee, finished their deliberations last Thursday. They will present their proposed CIP matrix to the Planning Board on September 10th. So this is here. I will note that CIP requires, what was approved by the CIP committee would require an additional $2.5 million of funding above the 2026 budget. So it is a pretty significant amount. I know one of the things that changed during the CIP process was the discussion of leasing of vehicles. So when Adam had initially proposed, it was for purchase outright, so that is a little bit of a change there.
Is the 2.5 with the leasing of the vehicle?
No, it is
No.
not. It was for purchase outright.
So
that-
what would the change be if we went to the leasing or rental model?
I do not have that number currently, and Adam is adding that into his proposed budget as directed by the board at your last meeting.
Okay, I just want to make sure that when we're doing the budgets, that we're doing the operational budget, basically the OpEx stuff on one side and then the CapEx stuff on the other.
And department heads have heard that direction. The CIP, unless it gets pulled out into a separate article, it's still part of the operating budget article.
Right, but I think when we present stuff to the budget committee, it should be done that way, 2 separate items.
Yep.
Because the intertwining, I think, is confusing too much, and I think that's how we're having some of the merit increases and things like that taken out, and I don't want to have that happen. I want to make sure that we talk about the capital expenditures and you know, specifically for Adam, if we can lower the CIP amounts by making it more operational, I think that that's also a benefit. So,
Okay.
are there any, Richard, that you saw that you were just like, I'm not really sure that we need those?
No, definitely not on the town side. But you know, the budget committee sees the school side stuff too. The only real change from what's typical is the leasing model that we're talking about now, and then Chief Serino made a change to one of the police cars that he's requesting. Typically he requests something that's more expensive. Now he's just gone with the less expensive one, knowing what will happen.
Save us an extra half hour.
What's the biggest ones we think in there, Richard, that are really driving that 2.5?
The road plan.
Oh, the road plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
The difference between the road plan that we have right now and the requested road plan isn't captured in our current operating budget.
Okay. Because I know that we keep going back with the road plan, and we, like, the 2 million, I thought, is typically, it's the reclamation line. Right?
Yeah.
And we're not doing 2 million in reclamation. We're doing a lot more in maintenance than I would say reclamation. So do we know, Derek, like, have we looked at the GASB piece? Are there pieces there that we can actually move into the operation piece and then break up?
I think there was a little bit more of a discussion between finance and DPW of how you add that value to that capital asset. It wasn't necessarily that we were booking it in the wrong place in the budget, whether it's road maintenance or operationally, but that once that work is done, how much of that value is getting added to that road segment and our overall road network.
But a lot of those pieces are maintenance, not necessarily, like, we're not rebuilding the road from ground up.
So I mean, it gets into a little bit of semantics. It's all, at this point, maintenance. It's just levels of maintenance. We aren't going out and putting a road from point A to point B through the woods, brand new road. Reclamation is an existing road, but you're getting down into the drainage, the sub-base more, rather than just, grind it and overlay. So it's all different levels of maintenance.
Yeah, I would recommend that if there are things that aren't necessarily reclamation or rebuilds, we should be moving that into the maintenance line, because basically they're going to eat into the reclamation line again. That way, unless we specifically call out what the reclamation pieces are. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels on that, but at least on some of the discussions I've had with others on the budget committee, they basically have had that same feeling too.
Can you summarize that again for me?
Yeah, so the 2 million, I'm just gonna say.
Road plan, yeah, 2 million.
Road plan, which is really the reclamation line. It's just been very massive, and they basically assume it's too much. They're not really seeing the outline of all those pieces, even though we talked to them about a plan, and I know we give them different plans at the budget committee. They're seeing that some of those pieces fall more underneath the maintenance piece, and the others are more like rebuilds of the road. And I think that they're looking for some split up between that. I think it would clarify a lot of things that we're planning for the year, and a little bit more planning on some of those pieces, because some of the, whether or not it's true or not, also other things are being purchased out of that line sometimes, and they want to make sure that they understand how everything is basically laid out.
So you just want, it's kind of like just painting a picture for them where that money's going, and so that they're more apt to identify with it and approve it.
And it doesn't look like one massive pool of money.
So
Right, that would
decrease,
just
you're
planning
talking
to hide somewhere.
Yeah.
decreasing the road plan number, but probably increasing the maintenance.
Correct.
I don't have a problem with that conceptually.
Do we need a motion to push down that direction?
No, I think we've got the board's direction on it, and once it comes to you, you have the ability to move items, whether it's for CIP, into the department, but I guess I would argue it's still the operating budget article, and you're just really getting into semantics of, is it in your CIP, which is capital outlay on the DRA forms, or is it in highway? But yeah, we can try and take a shot at it, and the board can make adjustments once you receive that.
So is the other line that is not the reclamation line, is it being treated as OpEx, or is it being treated as a depreciation line? It's operating.
It's operating, but
Then I would highly recommend that we move that.
Can you come up here and both? All for you? I mean, it's not, the entire reclamation line in CIP doesn't necessarily go into the value of the roads.
Correct.
Right, so which pieces do and which pieces don't?
So at the end of the year, the accountant and the finance director go through a whole set of invoices and reach out to DPW asking specifically about which roads, how many miles, all the different questions that we hit Adam with for him to help determine the value that can be added or counted for depreciation. So essentially, currently the whole line is acting as an operating expense, and then we're capitalizing independently at year end.
So which pieces are getting capitalized and depreciated?
So it's mostly going to be, like specific paving, and like we don't capitalize porta potties or, materials that are purchased and then used again on another job, like a tool or something like that.
Right.
But obviously tons of asphalt or base gravel or things like that.
Basically where we're doing a reclaim of the road. What about just the top cover? Is that also getting capitalized? So then what I would say is I would take some segment and look at this past year's budget, that basically for the road plan that we see that are not going to be capitalized, and I would say move that into the operational line. So that way we can split some of those out and say these are specific pieces that are going to be used for capitalization.
I think we can do that, but then we're going to also have some items that are historically been in DPW that are now going to move from the operational into the, like, you've got your sidewalk
Yeah, sidewalk maintenance.
maintenance, you have a paving line in.
The way, I think the best way to talk, maybe a way to talk about it, is how we got to where we are from where things live in the budget. And a lot of it was in prior years or in years where DPW's staffing has been lower, we've contracted out certain work. So when you contract out, they may be doing all the same things, renting toilets, paying flaggers, whatever, but it's coming out of the one line because you cut the contract for that amount. And the goal over the years has been to try to maintain at least some semblance of the all-in cost to the town for roads versus pulling it back out into different areas in which in a given year, if you issue a contract for that, you don't have that luxury of itemizing. So now it's hard for the town to compare apples. Okay, hey, by doing it in-house, we're saving X, because you can just look at the whole cost of that year's road plan versus a contractor. So, and again, it's the way things morph each year. For a time, the resurfacing line, which is the part of a good chunk of the road plan which lives in the operating budget side under the 3111 account, was there because the reclamation had been zeroed out altogether. And there was a desire to have a line which in default years would serve as at a minimum, we have enough money here to overlay streets that were reclaimed in the previous year, and you don't have just 2.5 inches of asphalt for maybe multiple years in a row because the budget keeps failing. So there was an attempt to put some there because it would survive a default scenario.
But both lines are actually in the default, correct?
Now
They are now
They are now.
because
They
they've
are
been
now.
adopted.
Yep.
Yeah, which I think is fine. I would say move the pieces that are the resurfacing pieces on one side, put the reclamation in another, and if there are other, like, I know that we talked about creating a bridge one too, right? Because we're actually doing bridge work now,
We created that account.
yeah, out of the reclaim line, when really we should be planning and saying we're gonna work on a bridge this year, so either it's gonna get accepted or not. And I think the budget committee, when they see those things and those lines and we talk about them, if they say you don't get the money for the bridge work, well then that's just the bridge work that we worry about at that point in time. So I would say if there are other pieces that are just overlay, because, I mean, looking at all the stuff that we're doing now, we're doing a lot more overlay than we are reclaim.
Yes, we have to.
We have to.
To even get close to
Yeah, to even get
maintaining
close.
status quo.
And we know that the reclaim's pretty expensive, so still leave a chunk of money in that, but I'd say move those other pieces over. And I think from an accounting standpoint, if there are pieces where we're still missing a line, do we need to add another line for other pieces, like tools, equipment, maintenance? Because like, I know that we bought a welder, didn't we buy a welder? So we have to buy those pieces too. Those are what I would call supplies, like that should be in a supply line somewhere.
Sure. There, and for the sake of argument, I think it makes a good point. When it comes time for the budget committee to make their decision, that's not what I've seen in the past. That's not how they make it. They'll just say, we need to find $400,000 tonight, and they look for reorganize everything in the biggest lines, and then they just say, that comes back to the select board, because you're not abdicating any of your authority with the road, where to spend those funds and how to spend those funds. They're dealing with the bottom line, and they just want to make the cuts as fast as they can. Personally, I haven't seen that in the fact, 15 years I've been doing this.
Well, they want to see
where they actually will, they'll say, well, we don't get to decide where they're spending this money. We're going to find a cut, and there it goes, and then it's up to you folks in the spring after.
Well, that's why I want to be more clear about where the items are, because I've done some footwork and talked to a number of them, and I do think that if we have some of this out front, we'll have more of a discussion, and if they decide that they want to pull the money from the reclaim line, and they want to take a road from somebody, then that's on them.
So that did happen last year, as you guys remember. Budget did what it did, no reclaim made it through, and then after a month or so, residents came in and the select board decided to put reclaim dollars back in. So I don't know if, I get what you're saying, but the budget committee has a short memory sometimes with, one season to the next with.
Well, I think a couple things happened in that vein, right, Jim? Where we had that reclaim where the residents came in. I guess we made a promise to them that we were going to do something. Then we didn't. We changed the road plan up as part of that.
Well, right. I mean, in their words, but if we're told we have to meet a certain, we've had a cut budget, I come to the board and say, well, what do you want to do? You have X number of dollars to spend left, it makes the most sense to spend it on maintaining the roads you have versus.
But it's been in a big pool of money. I think if you break it down and say this is specific to this, and that's what you're going to take away from, now it's a judgment call on the people to make that choice.
You can. The downfall with that is that when you're talking about a neighborhood streets versus like a main drag, sometimes it's a lot easier for them to make that call. They're less community minded when it comes time to a house with, or a street with 15 houses on it.
Sure.
Versus,
But they're elected officials
Mast
too.
Road or
Other people will
whatever.
remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get a very interested group of, 15 homeowners in here, for sure. But you do need to be careful with the pitting, single street or whatever against the rest of the town when it comes to budget season.
I don't think anybody's trying to pit. I think we're just saying that this is what the purpose of the money is, and it should be broken up that way, accordingly into the budget line items.
I think Josh might be hoping that if we can actually break it down more for them and not just give them a lump sum to cut, and you may be right. I've been there.
I mean, last year they got the
You
list.
100% could be right. But
here's
his
our-
point is, maybe if we give them a little more breakdown of like, okay, but this is for reclamation, and then this is for this, and this is for this, maybe they're less, like, it'll give them more of a perspective that if you start cutting that line, this is legitimately what can happen, is that we won't have this dollar, these dollars for all of the neighborhoods that we want to help. I think that's where Josh is coming from. Again, I feel like either one of you could be right, and it's gonna depend a bit on the mentality of the budget committee once we get there.
Right.
And I'm happy to say I'm wrong.
And one argument, one year becomes a different argument, you know, the second year. They did have the list proposed last year, and it didn't.
Yeah, they had the list proposed, but all they saw was a giant number.
Right.
They didn't see that street is associated to this line item. If you're gonna cut that,
Or
this is the street.
These streets, yeah, like you said, you don't want to be pitting one-to-one, but going, okay, but if we only have, if this is all we're going to be able to do and you take money out of it, then we can't probably do all of those, and that's going to be your choice.
If I recall, you did give them the proposed, so they actually had that list last year.
remember.
They had it. It
Yeah.
didn't, you know, I'm happy to do, obviously, whatever the board wants to do. I want to make sure it's something repeatable for finance, obviously, and for their reporting. And then doesn't back us into a situation where,
And quite frankly, from a finance standpoint, working in businesses, if that line's really CapEx and we keep it as CapEx, it should be a lot easier so the auditors and everything aren't having to go back through and saying, what did you do, Adam? What did you spend it on? And they should be instantaneously be able to say, that's CapEx line, this is what we spent it on, this is what it was used for. If you're sitting there shoving things in and out and you're basically moving items in and out of there, yeah, auditors are going to spend a lot of time asking you questions.
But our point last year, at least my point in doing that, was that just the money that we actually ended up with, just split it up a little bit so that we can do some of the side streets, and rather than just maintaining the main streets at the expense of all the side streets. Some of the side streets in town are just falling apart just because, you know, we got to keep, and the hope, at least my hope, was to just chip away at some of the side streets as we go along, and at the expense of the maintaining the roads, depending on how much money we have. So that, I'd like to keep that as a focus too, if we can.
So in addition, we created a new line for bridge
Yep.
within the, we call it Department 88, but that's the CIP. And as Adam indicated, if we're moving kind of CapEx and OpEx back and forth, then some of the reclamation that's currently in highway would be shifting down. How many lines do you want us creating? Are we creating new lines such as a reclamation? Well, we already have the reclamation, but the overlay line within CIP, and then the items that Adam determines should be operating, like a tool purchase or something's going to go into the existing lines in the operating.
I think that's what we should be doing from a budgeting standpoint, because it's going to be much clearer to the budget committee as to what's going where. Anytime I've done any budgeting with teams, like if they came to me with a $2 million like line item and said, this is the bucket that we do a whole bunch of things with, I would be like, show me the line items for everything that's in there if I were on that budget committee. Or I would say, break it up into the areas that need to be, you know, what's overlay, what's going to be reclaim, what's going to be these pieces. If we need to create more line items, then sure. If that's easier to maintain and track, then I would say that's what we should do. And if we need a motion for that, I'm happy to make a motion.
I think we can just, if the board's okay with it, kind of give us a crack at it as part of the budget development. And as part of the budget, we can maybe talk about it a little bit more if the board's okay with that.
Yep.
Yep. I also want to make accounting's life easier.
We can take a look at the lines.
I think the hard thing for Adam is going to be, he's going to have different projects every year, and the more lines you get, the more up and down, you know, some years you're going to need more porta potties, some years less. And that is, to go back to the budget committee every year, they're pretty much going to be looking at 3-year actuals.
Yeah.
And they're going to be, well, you didn't spend that much this, while we're doing this many road segments. So
But different
we don't want to get too,
I don't think you want too many.
detailed.
Yeah.
Right.
But to your point, Derek, they're absolutely looking at those 3 years actuals.
Yeah.
Which is why they're like, oh, you didn't spend this $200 or whatever. I would question whether or not 3 years is enough. It could be 5 years, like at some point in time that we need to go to, but I mean, we'll go with the 3 years that they recommended for this time around. Because, you know, maybe you didn't use $200 for the last 2 years, but that really shouldn't be the problem. The problem should be, are you staying within the budget, or within that budget and actually getting the things done that you said you were going to do? Are you raising it too much? You know, those sort of questions. That should be the discussion.
Okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any old business? Okay, any new business? Anybody got any new business? The next thing is 8C, the action matrix. Derek, you want to just, anything new?
No, you've got the vehicles on there. We will put out the RFP for snow clearing. Adam's working on the traffic study for Elm, Main High Street. And then capital reserve funds will probably bring forward a couple of possible solutions at your next meeting on the 24th. Although not noted here, we'll just remind everyone the board's going to have a joint meeting with the budget committee on Tuesday, August 25th.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
One thing, Mark is covering for me at planning board this week because I have to travel.
thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Okay, public comment. Is anyone here for public comment? Come on up, sir. Sorry to keep you waiting that long.
No problem. My dad was a member of the Budget Committee, the Planning Board, and the Zoning Board of Adjustment for years. I can remember him leaving the dinner table and coming here for over 20 years. So this was a kind of insight into those years for me, because I did not accompany him with that. He was devoted to the town of Goffstown and what you people are doing. I'm here tonight.
Would you just state your name and your address?
Oh, I'm sorry.
first,
My name
please?
is Roger Aubin. I'm not a resident of Goffstown, although I have lived my summers on the river for 77 years now. And I was coming this evening just to encourage you to continue your support for milfoil removal on the river. And I missed my 6 o'clock show up by time, and so I wanted to make sure I stayed through just to let you know how valuable that is, how much I really care about the river, and all of the people I know who live down there. And this is perhaps a time of year when everyone is just tied to the river. And you would have easily had, I think, 200 people here tonight had they not taken for granted perhaps the support that you give, and that has been really essential in trying to keep milfoil from becoming an even bigger problem on the river. So I want to thank you for your past support and ask that you continue, because it's very helpful and it's working.
Great.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Motion to enter non-public session under RSA 91A:3, Section 2, under items A and I, or is that an L?
That's an L, so
Oh, A and L.
A for employee compensation, and L, consideration of legal advice.
Second. Go ahead.
Okay, motion by Richard, second by Mark. Roll call vote.
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you. That concludes our public portion of the meeting.